Thank you for stopping by. In today's video, I'm working on the snapper that's been sitting for a little over 2 years. I got it running. That's in the video up above. I cut my lawn once with it. Well, today's the second time I cut my lawn with it since the repair, and a lot of smoke was coming out. Well, oil is dripping from underneath. I believe it's either the crank seal or the lower gasket. But look how this is dripping away over here. So the little drip that was there, I guess by me using it twice, blew it out altogether. I'm going to order the gasket and the seal because I'm not sure what it is, so I'll order both. And in the next part of the video, I'll be showing you how I remove this engine and how I repair either the gasket, the seal, or the both of them. We'll be on hold for a day or two until I get those pieces in. I'm going to go and order it on Amazon Prime. They say it's a 2-day delivery. And here's a pitch. If you don't have Amazon Prime, go to the link down below. You could get a 30-day free trial. You could try it for 30 days if you don't have it. If you cancel before 30 days, no charge. If you wait, it's $12.99 a month if you like the service and continue to keep it. But that's not what this video is about. As soon as I get those pieces in, I'll be back. I have the deck removed. That's in another video up above. I have the tractor lifted up, and you want to release the brake. That takes the tension off the belt underneath. You want to make sure the wheels are chucked, and you want to make sure that this tractor is secure. It's not a car, but you definitely don't want this falling on you. Shaking it over here, make sure everything is fine. Let's take a look underneath. You see I have the 2 ramps and I have the jack stands on top of the ramps. This isn't going anywhere. While you're under here, it's a good time to check everything else out. Check your belt. That long belt down the middle over here, that's your drive belt. You want to check the pulleys, make sure they're not seized, they spin freely. This is the drive belt up here that has to come off. This clutch with the pulley also has to come off. This is for the deck. There's this one bolt over here that holds it on. These are the bolts for the engine. Hard to see with all this oil and grass. This is some mess. This has to be disconnected over here. This wire, that's for the clutch. This clutch could be a little bit of a problem pulling it off. I'll see when I go to take it off. If it's on here for a long time, it could be seized on there. Won't know until I get to it. And right back there, you can see there's a safety switch. Good time to check those safety switches. As these tractors get older and they won't start, or the deck won't turn on, a lot of times it's the safety switch or the wire going to it. Again, I hope this clutch and pulley isn't seized on here. All right, gonna clean this wire up a little bit so I can get it off without breaking it. Definitely don't want to break that wire. Take a look under here. I'm going to clean this all up and check everything out before I put the engine back on. While I'm under here, I may as well make this trip count. Yeah, this clutch is a mess. But it was working. I was cutting grass with it. Despite all the oil on it and everything, it wasn't slipping. Let's go topside and see what we have. Have to pull the muffler off, and this is the cover. I already pulled out the 2 screws that hold this on. Screw them back in just so I don't lose them. One on each end here. And on the outside plate, there are bolts. One on each side that has to be removed. Once you remove these bolts and that cover, the muffler pulls right out. Look at this oil and grass. This is a fire waiting to happen. I'm surprised this thing didn't start on fire while I was using it. I mean, that's just caked on there. This is from previous use and for me using it the last couple of times out. Well, this all has to be cleaned up. I'll clean this up once I pull the engine off. And now back to getting this engine off, I'm going to have to pull what looks like the governor off. See where it's connected down here? This is on the lower part of the engine. It's connected down here to the governor shaft. And the links are connected to the top part of the engine. Try to get the camera in here so you can see it a little better. Here's the screwdriver. You can see there's the seam where the engine splits, right there, where the tip of the screwdriver is. So I'm going to have to disconnect that, I said clutch, governor, excuse me. I'm going to have to disconnect that governor and readjust it when I put it back together. Besides that, these two cables have to come off. There's one on top here, one on the bottom, one for the gas, one for the choke. But the carburetor doesn't have to come off. So I'm going to start disassembling this, and I'll be back. Okay, I have the engine out, and I thought I'd be able to find this oil leak really simple. But I don't see where it's coming out of. This is just a spray you get as it's running. So I had my son and my nephew look at it, and what I did notice that these bolts here, I was able to snug them up a little bit, and my nephew pointed out, got a better eye than me, that this bolt was very wet compared to these others. So he's thinking it was leaking from here. Now, interesting enough, when this engine is on the mower and you turn it over, this is the side that it was really leaking from. So I'm going to give this a little snug, and my next step, I'm going to take this outside. I'm going to power wash this all down. I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to put some diesel fuel in here, into the crankcase. The reason I'm using diesel fuel is because I won't be starting this engine up. I might crank it over, but I'm not going to start it. And my theory, whether right or wrong, is that the diesel fuel is a lot thinner than the motor oil, and any leaks I have, it should be leaking out, because this was leaking, it was dripping when the engine was off, but then again, the engine was hot. So once I clean this up and it's good and dry, I'm going to take it outside, flip it over, put a bucket under it, fill it with the diesel fuel, and see if it drips. If it doesn't drip, I'm going to use the battery pack to crank it a few times and to see if that'll get it to leak. I'm just curious as where this leak is coming from. More than likely, this cover's going to have to come off. This pulley will have to come off. Got to remove this key, and I'll have to change the gasket that's in here. And while I have it off, I don't think that's what's leaking, but the seal on the crankcase, while I have it off, I may as well change that also. And I'm going to have to remove this governor linkage, because it's connected to the bottom part over here. So this is going to have to come off, and then I'm going to have to reset this governor when I put it all back together. So that's where I'm at for now. Once I clean it up and I find the leak, I'll be back to show you that. If I don't find the leak, well, I'll just have to take it all apart and put the new gasket in. All right, I cleaned this engine up, and I decided to bring it back home to work on it. And what I did was just put these boards up so the shaft could be in between and it wouldn't be rolling around in the back of the trailer. But even with that and driving slow, this piece popped off. Now, I'm not a big fan of these easy release on the oil. As a matter of fact, before I install this engine, I'm going to take this out and put a metal pipe nipple in there with a cap on the end. I find that to be the best way to drain the oil on these, and I never have a problem with them. So now, what I'm going to do, let me show you. If you recall, under here was covered with oil and dirt. What I'm going to do now is put this bucket inside this cut-off bucket I have down here. Put the engine in here, fill it with that diesel fuel, and see if it leaks. I just want to see where that leak is coming from. I have a feeling I'm going to have to pull it apart. You recall that bolt that had oil on it? It's on the other side of the engine. Well, I didn't tighten that up. I want to see if it's leaking from there, or possibly it might have been leaking from here and just rolled to the other side. Anyway, let me get this going and I'll show you what I come up with. Yeah, I got this as balanced as I could. I put about 3/4 of a gallon of diesel fuel in here, way overfilled. This leakage over here, the last little bit I spilled, and I believe the leak was on the other side. So I'm going to leave this for a while and see It's pretty hot out here today. I'm going to go inside, give it about an hour or so. And if I don't find any leaks on it anywhere around, what I'm going to do is hook up the jumper to the starter and crank it up a little bit and see if that forces any fluid out and where it's forcing it out. I don't see any drips in the bucket other than a little bit that I spilled over there. Yeah, I got a little right at the end. I got a little careless. But for now, we wait, and then I'll be back out. All right, I waited about an hour. I dumped the diesel fuel out. I dumped it into this bucket. A little bit still dripping out over here. And underneath, where I found the leak, it was on this one bolt. It's all wet in here. You can see that on my finger. It's wet in here, wet down in here, and it's coming right out of this bolt over here. None of these other ones are leaking. Now I did mention, well, this is wet here, but I'm not sure if it's from this or not. Like I said, this has to be changed. So this one's wet, and this one's wet. I did crank it once or twice with the battery jumper. Now, this might have just been loose, I don't know. But I have it off. There's no point in putting this back in and going through all of that, because to get this off, you have to take the deck off. So it's a little bit of an ordeal. I am going to change the gasket. I'm not sure about the seal over here. More than likely, I'll also be changing this seal. And once I start taking it apart, I have to flip this engine. I have to remove all these bolts, disconnect the governor linkage, get this other pulley off, pull this up, clean it up inside, see if there's anything else in the inside I should be looking at or correcting, cleaning it up, putting a new gasket on, and probably a new seal. Once I get this in position and I start working on it, I'll be back to show you. I've dumped the diesel fuel that was in here out, and I'm going to start taking this apart. Now, this is the nut that was leaking. If it wasn't so much work, I would just try snugging it up, bringing it to the right torque, and putting it back on. But between taking the deck off, having to pull this out, it's hot out, and my grass is about 8 inches tall right now. I have to get this going. So the first thing I'm going to do is loosen this nut over here and slide this off. This is for the governor. If this doesn't slide off easy, just pry it a little bit with a screwdriver in here, slide it out. Get this key out. I was playing around with it a little bit. It was in there pretty tight. I just use a big screwdriver to go underneath, pop it off. You don't want to mar this with vice grips in it, because the clutch has to slide on top of it. So I'll be pulling this off. I'll be pulling the key out. This pulley comes out. You want to keep track of all the parts that go on there and how it goes back together. Then you have this part on top of the pulley. If there's anything underneath, you want to keep track of that. This is the oil pump under here. So this has to come out, because to put it back together, if I read the instructions correctly, this has to go in from the top. So I'm just going to start taking this apart right now. These bolts require a 1/2 inch socket. This nut over here, 11mm wrench will work well on it. And for these over here, 8 or 9, it was an 8 or 9mm. I can't read the numbers on it, but it fits snug. So I'm going to start taking this apart. I'll leave the camera rolling. If you like, skip ahead to see what it looks like on the inside. You don't want to lose any of these parts. And there's another key down in here. This seal looks fine over here. Nothing wrong with the seal. The leak was all from in here. Well, these are all on snug. You have this O-ring in here. Get a good look at this pump the way it is. This is very similar to a pump that's in an oil burner pump. Looks very similar to it. Let's see. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any particular way this goes back on. This here. On this. Okay, when we put this back in, it'll go back in this direction. That's the only reason I'm taking this out right now. Just popping this back together like this to make it easier to keep track of the parts. I won't be finishing this up tonight. Plan on it tomorrow, but it's supposed to be 110 degrees. And to be honest with you, if it's that hot and it's a muggy day, I probably won't be working on this. Now remember, these bolts at the end of them, they have Loctite on them, so they'll be a little stiff coming out. Although several over here where the leak was were loose, and I torqued them down. If you have a pneumatic tool or an electric wrench, that would work on these. But whenever I'm working on aluminum like this, I prefer to use hand power this way, even taking them off. That might change as time goes on. Now this was fairly loose over here on this side. If I'm not mistaken, all these bolts are the same length. I believe I got them all. Now to get this off, you want to tap it, and you want to be careful where you tap it. If you have a wooden mallet, or this is a composite material, or a rubber mallet will work on it also. You want to hit it. You want to hit this block where they have. Oh, there's one more. You want to hit the block where they have these tabs. Just to free it up, I'm going to use the wooden one. It's coming. It's coming. It opened up here in the back, but you can use a screwdriver. You want to be real careful not to mar up the surfaces, otherwise you will get a leak. You fix one leak, only to get another. There you go. Okay, everything's moving on this side. Everything's moving on this side. All right. Well, we loosened it up. This just popped right out. This was no problem. And this is what we have on the inside. If you've never seen the inside of one of these before, here we go. You have your governor. You have your oil strainer down here. Here's your oil filter. Now, let me dump this oil out. I'll just dump it in here. Okay, let's see what we have. You can see here that the gasket was sucked in. This is where I came in with in the front. I used a screwdriver, so the screwdriver might have did this on the way in. But this over here was in touch with the screwdriver, and this is where she was leaking. So I have to scrape all this down. Make sure we get all this off before we put the new gasket on this surface and the surface over here. Once I clean all this off and give it that kerosene, I'm gonna put the new gasket on and put it back together. Now keep an eye on these little pins. Sometimes they might get stuck over here. If somebody was in there before and they use gasket sealer, they just might pop off. You want to make sure these pins are here. They help keep your gasket in place when you install the gasket. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 10 holes That's the gasket that was ordered. It had 10 holes plus the 2 for the pins. Now, I don't have to retime this, but if ever you had to pull the camshaft out, you see this divot over here? That little indentation? To time this, you would get this dot to line up with this dot on the crankshaft. And that's if you had to pull the cam out, if you were changing the push rods and so on. And that pump, that pin for that pump goes down in here. That's why I opened it up to pull it out, because when we put that cover on, we're going to line it up and get that pin. I'm calling it a pin. It might have another name for it, a shaft. And it has to line up in here like this. And as this turns, these gears turn, this will turn. This has a square end of it, fits into that pump, and that's what turns the oil pump. So now I have to get to cleaning this up. We'll put it all back together and we'll take it from there. All right, this is what I've got done so far. I removed the gasket and cleaned this all the way around. I removed the diesel fuel that I had in here. I blew it out with an air compressor. I ran the old bolts through here again to try to clean out these threads as much as possible. This one you can still see there's a little Loctite that comes on it. Did it several times, put a nylon brush in and out. That's the best I can get it out of there. When it comes to the pump cover, did the same here. I left the old filter on just for when I'm lifting this engine up and down. I'll put the new filter on after I put it onto the tractor. I use this to grab onto. It's just a leverage point. Oh, looks like a little one. Missed a little there. Cleaned this out. This was all, I didn't see anything out on his. One thing I want to point out, gonna have to readjust this governor again. And you see when this is turned, how this lever's going up and down. And on this lever, when it's turned this way, and that's where it's touching this point on the governor. If you're anything like me, you might want to do what I did. I put this little arrow to show, the better view of that, to show that when I turn this, which way it's going. Sometimes when you're putting things back together, you're looking at it one way, and then when you're flipping it over, it's going another way. So this way there's no confusion. I know when I turn it this way, it's when it's engaging. That said, now, I had a couple of days setback. The first gasket that they sent me, it arrived in 2 days. It arrived early, as a matter of fact. It was the wrong gasket. I have to say, with the Amazon, I just put in that I'm sending it back. Reason why, I put right part number, wrong part, does not fit. They immediately gave me credit. Can't beat that kind of customer service. But I had to wait another 2 days for them to send out, and I went to a different distributor. I have the link for this in the description down below if you have the same engine. This one here, I believe, was $22, but when I got it, it came, it was packed a lot better too. The other one came in a bag and it was folded. It came with the gasket, and it came with 10 new bolts with the Loctite and the washers on it already. So I'm going to use the new bolts rather than the old ones, although the old ones, I don't know. I like the look of the old ones better, but this has the Loctite on it, so I'll use the new ones. Now, when you put this gasket on, the surface has to be clean and dry. You want to make sure these guide pins are in. That'll help you put the gasket on correctly. And it looks like this may or may not have instructions in it. I'm going to open it up now and see what's in there. I also ordered, this was from a different seller, the seal, the crankshaft seals. I ordered 2 of them. But this one doesn't look like it's leaking. I don't see any tears in it. And this looks like it might be a little loose. Can you see that? How it goes in there? It's not even, maybe it tapers down in there. When it goes down, I even use the micrometer to measure it, the tail end of the micrometer, so I get it down to the same. But I'm not going to change this. Now, I don't know. Oh, maybe it's over here that's a little tighter. I just don't want to mess with it. If this isn't leaking, I don't want to take the chance that the new one's leaking. It's not for the expense. I just hope that this isn't leaking, because bottom line is I really don't want to pull this apart again. And my lawn right now is over ankle height, so I got to get this going. All right, let's open this up. Hey, John, you hold the camera.
All right.
Let's see. I have to say this was well packaged. What are you shining it on?
There.
This?
That
Yep.
and that.
Okay. I'm the guy you don't let open the cereal boxes. This has a resealable bag for some reason.
It's for like if you have to return it.
Oh, if I have to return it. Johnny, my cameraman, says it's if I have to return it. Okay, let's get this out first. Now this part here, you showing this part, John?
Yep.
This part looks a lot thicker than the old gasket was. The old gasket wasn't that thick around. Let's see if this fits now. Okay, let me have that camera. Okay, lining it up with the holes. Okay, gonna have to be careful. You want to make sure these are lined up and you're not pinching it. This is what I'm talking about. The old gasket, see how wide this is? The old gasket was like, when I was scraping it off, it was like this. Are there any instructions in there, John, on the back of that? No. Sometimes they'll tell you instructions on. Well, here, hold that. No instructions. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, we have a 90-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. If Amazon do not allow you to, okay. Messenger seller to get full refund. Crankcase cover parts, lawnmower with bolts, crankcase gasket, remove. Well, made in China. That's not a surprise. Now, I went online and they said the torque on this was 27 foot-pounds. But I had an old book where it said the torque on this was 300 inch-pounds. 300 inch-pounds is only 25 foot-pounds. So when I torque this down, I believe what I'm going to do is to split the difference. Maybe go like 25, a little bit past 25. 25 and a half, 26, I'm not sure. I'll see how it feels as I'm torquing them down. Another thing, if you recall, where I had the leak was on this side of the engine, and the bolts over here were loose. So I'm not sure if those bolts loosened up, if somebody else worked on this once before. The only thing I see where somebody might have been in here before, and I don't think it's factory. I know I didn't do this. This has a few scuffs and scratches on it, and that I didn't do. A few of these over here I probably did when I was cleaning the gasket, but not that. Anyway, I'm going to slide this on now. Oh, one other thing. I mentioned it earlier. To make sure the timing's right, let me see. You have this dimple right here on the cam gear, and then you have this dimple over here on the crankshaft gear. So they have to line up to make sure this timing is right. John, you have those pliers I was using right there. Let me have that rag. Not turning. Yeah, hold the camera, John. Now you want to be careful. You want to put a rag on here, something to cover this, not to scratch it. See right here the way this is lined up? Is that showing? Let's see. Right here, these two line up. That's telling you that your timing is correct. I knew it was okay. Other than leaking oil, it was running. And I didn't do anything to the cam gear. So now I'm going to put the cover on, slide it down, and my only concern right now is that oil seal. On one other thing, I mentioned earlier that I'm not a big fan of these, so I'm going to put this pipe nipple in here. I have to go out and get another one. This is just a little longer than what I want. This pipe nipple I'm going to thread in. I'll use a little Teflon tape, and I'll put a cap on it on the end. You can also put an elbow, depending on the configuration, the engine you have. You can put an elbow where it just comes right down and put a plug in it. So there's a couple of ways you can do this, but I'm definitely going with the nipple, and I'm not reinstalling this. Okay, John, hold the camera right on this. So I want to make sure this is lined up. All the holes are lined up. You're shining on here. Okay. Oil. I knew I was forgetting something here. They sell a spray, and it's not oil. It's like a gel where it sticks onto here. When you put an engine parts back together, it's good to use. I just don't have any right now, so I'm going to use some oil on here. This is 30 weight oil. Even if you have some old STP laying around, you want to put some lubrication on it. Catching it all? On here. Catching here. And on the inside over here. See, what's nice about that spray, it sticks. And you don't have to worry about it mixing with the oil. It's not a problem. So you want to make sure everything slides right in. Okay. And I move this. Let me wipe my hands. It's supposed to be dry. Look, it's no good. See, I got oil on there. You want this dry. Okay. Okay, we're looking good. If I could keep it that way now. Let's take this out. Now we slide this straight on. Okay, it is moved. Okay. And just want to make sure that gasket is lined up right. Where you shining? Is it here? You don't want the bolts going through and messing up that gasket. Just wiggle this a little bit. Okay. You want to keep an eye on the seal and make sure the seal, come closer, John. Let's see that rubber seal. You want to make sure that rubber seal doesn't roll up on you. So far, so good. And I'm not hitting this hard. You can see how easy I'm touching this. Okay. All right. It should go down easy, other than the seal. Now we have to put the oil pump back together. I got it, John. You just concentrate on the camera. So you get this on your. Don't wipe it. Don't wipe it on your pants. This has an O-ring. I didn't replace this. There isn't anything wrong with this. This is a rubber O-ring. If it was cracked, then you want to replace it. So we're taking this out. Let me get the shaft. I took all my needle nose pliers in the house when I worked on that wire. And I didn't take them out. Okay. I just had this together before not to lose any of the pieces. I'm just taking that out. Now this has to go into that slot down below. Johnny, get in close. See how it just went all the way down? Let me point this out. This side is made to go into a slot, and this side, is this showing up, John? And this side is made to go into this little star gear. So now, you just turn this until it goes in. Okay. Now you have to get this on. And you have to turn it a little bit here and there. Let's see, it fits this way, but this has to turn. You know what? Let's take this out. Let's try it this way, see if this is easier going this way. And then we get this in. And this could go in either way. Stop making noise. Okay, and that's how that goes in. Just like that. Now, I do not have the torque specification for these bolts right here. I'm going to go until it's snug in a little bit. And I want to make sure when you get these in, they're going straight in, that you're not cross. You're working with aluminum. Very easy to cross thread. Could you see that good? Or are you too close?
I got it. Go close.
So I'm doing one side, just getting it tight. The directions I have on the torque for these bolts, it just gives me the torque and it doesn't give me a pattern. So I'm going to go with a crisscross pattern. That's how generally they work. You do one side, you go to the other, then back and forth. And I'm not going to tighten it down all the way the first time out. I'm going to do it the way I would do a head gasket, where you go part of the way, then another part of the way, and then finish it off. Okay, these are tight. And when you're doing this, I like using a smaller ratchet so I don't over tighten it and end up stripping these, especially not knowing what torque it should be. Seal looks good. Now it's time for the bolts. Brand new shiny bolts. I was ready to use the other ones. First gasket didn't come with the bolts. Not that much Loctite on it. Then again, from China. Okay. Here we go. When you put these in, slide them by hand. You can back it out and go in. You strip one of these and you're gonna have a job.
Mm-hmm.
These feel a lot looser than the old ones. I'm assuming they're correct, but I don't know about these bolts. I'm not comfortable with these here. Now the old bolts, and just for an example, this one here. I don't know. The thread seems to be a little bit off. There you go, it's getting a little snug now. And you know what? These aren't lock washers on here. These are just flat washers. The original had lock washers. I'm a little concerned about some bolts. Post it in your comments down below. What would you do? Would you use the old nuts and bolts, Loctite on it, or would you use these new ones? I'm not too crazy about these new ones. Like I said, the biggest part about this is getting the engine off. Who am I missing here? Here we go. Oh. Good job, John. I got Johnny, my cameraman, over here. His fingers fit in all these tight little places for me. Okay, where am I missing? Right there? Okay. Turn it by hand like this takes a couple seconds longer, but I know I'm not cross-threading anything. There we go. And use a speed to get it going. Once I get them snug, I'll get the torque wrench. Fast, huh? Old school. Little John's looking at me using this speed wrench over here instead of using the power tool. This is the way it was done forever, John, like this. Yeah, you go back and forth. You do one side, then the other side, then the other side. Okay, let's see. I got this one. And now this one. And it's time to get the torque wrench. Now it's at 27 foot-pounds. So let's see. A third of 27 would be what? 9, right? 3 9s, John? 27? 9 and 9 is how much?
9, 9, 18, 9,
And
9,
9
9, 9, 47.
Okay. So we got to do this, let's say, in thirds. All right. I don't know which one to start with. Like I said, I don't have the instructions for that, so I'm just going to do the crisscross pattern. What do you see? You see my finger here? Okay. So I'll start over here. All right. Heard that click? That's when you know it tells you how many pounds. Listen. Ready? Okay. And what I did that. Did I do this one, John? Oh, I forgot which ones I did. I should have marked them, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did that one. Now it is. This one? You did it? You sure? No, we did it. You said no. This one we didn't do. See how nice and easy it is?
Mm-hmm.
And it's always nice working on a clean engine.
You got all of them.
Okay. Now, you know, I'll go just a little under. It's like 18 right there. All right, 9, 9, 18, right, John? Okay, I'm going to start with this one. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have this set on 19, just a little above 18, so I'm going to say 19. It seems like it's too much tension. I don't know. I don't feel good about this. I think that was the bolt. The bolt snapped. Told you I wasn't feeling good about that. Okay, here's a problem. Which one was it? This one, right? Okay. Yep, that bolt snapped. I told you I wasn't feeling good about it.
Did it actually?
No, it didn't snap. Was it this one?
Yeah.
It wasn't this one. It was this one.
Yeah, Grandpa, I found this.
I just hope it didn't snap the thread on the inside. If it did, I'm going to have to get a larger diameter bolt and, yep, it's stripped. Okay, here's what happened. As I was tightening this stripped inside in here. That snap, that loud snap you heard, was inside of here. And I was way below the torque that it should have been. Unless my torque wrench is off. I don't know. This is the old bolt. Let's see what we could do with this. I'm going off camera for a minute. Okay, what I did over here was put one of the older bolts back in with some Loctite on it. And I tightened these all up. And I brought them up to 25. After I did 25, I went around on each one of them again, and I just used the torque to make sure that I didn't miss any of them. Still concerned about this one, but it took 25 foot-pounds of torque on it, and it didn't strip out. I don't know if it was the bolt before. This isn't looking good, but this might be a weak point here. I might be revisiting this again. For now, that's what I can do. All right, this is an end of the video tip. Earlier I mentioned that I was going to put a nipple on the oil drain, and the nipple I have is too long. One or two ways you can do this. You could put this nipple in and put a cap on the end of it. This was just a little too long. Or this is one I took off one of the older mowers I had. You could put the nipple in with this elbow in with a plug. You could pick these up in any hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, anybody will carry them. Just get it to the length that you want. This will make changing oil a lot easier, and you won't have to worry about that plastic part that was in here originally falling apart on you. I reinstalled the engine, started it up, let it run for 5 minutes, and it's a success. Down here where it was leaking before, it's not leaking. This was the bolt when I was putting it on, when we heard that crack. I thought maybe it was going to start leaking over here, but it's not leaking over there. It's good. Underneath, we're looking good. I was just under there. I can do it with the camera. I put this around just in case it started spitting oil out. I didn't want to go in all over the driveway. And one mistake I did make. I mentioned earlier that I didn't install a new ring. And what happened, I thought this ring was down a little bit. I was pushing it with the screwdriver, and right over here, I think I pushed too hard. I may have a future issue with that. Hope not, but if so, I'll have to pull this deck off again. And I could change that ring without taking the engine off. I just have to get this up off the ground. I would just use a come along and hoist it up on a tree limb. I would just pull it up to a tree, drain the oil, use a come along, and pull it up and work on it that way. So now I'm going to put the pulley on, the clutch on, a couple more pieces I have to reassemble, the wires for the hood lights, and a couple odds and ends, and I'm done. And that's it. Oh, and while I was under here, I put a little grease on grease fittings. I greased while I was, so it took a little longer, but there's things I took care of that I won't have to go back under and take care of them again. If you have any questions or comments, post them down below. If you found this video useful, give it a like. If you haven't done so already, subscribe. Hit that Joe Z button to subscribe to my channel. And once you do, don't forget to hit that bell icon to get my new videos as I upload them. And until next time, stay safe.